AFHU's Western Region President. Thank you for joining us this morning. We'll begin in just a few minutes. I wanted to let everyone know that if you have questions for any of the speakers, we're going to have a question and answer session at the end, so feel free to type questions into the Q&A box on the program. We'll be beginning in just a couple minutes. Thanks.
So our
Good morning. My name is Renee Jacobs Anson, and together with my Bel Air Affaire co-chairs Joyce Brandman and Helen Jacobs Lepore, and our honorary co-chairs Richard Zyman and Patty Glazer, as well as our AFHU board president Mark Jermender, we want to welcome you to this webinar, especially for our Bel Air Affaire family. Before we start, we wanted to wish you and your family health and safety during this very difficult time. The new normal we are living in today has changed our lives dramatically. And since it will be some time before we're able to get together and hug each other hello, we knew we had to get creative. And we came up with this webinar to bring everyone together to continue our 12th annual Bel Air Affaire tradition and provide vital scholarships for our students at our beloved Hebrew University. Now this year, we are focusing our fundraising efforts on graduate students who are studying and researching COVID-19 and the possibility of future pandemics. And we invite you, no, we implore you to stand with us and give with your generous support to these students scholarships that will enable them to continue their research and fight this pandemic and benefit the global community. And now I'd like to introduce my friend and fellow co-chair, Helen Jacobs Lepore. Helen?
Thank you, Renee, for your inspiring words, and good morning to all of you from Los Angeles. We have a wonderful program this morning that will transport you to Israel without having to leave the comfort of your home. We are very fortunate to have with us from Jerusalem, Professor Shai Arkin, the past Vice President. Okay, I guess I have to start over. Apparently I was muted. So thank you, Renee. and good morning to all of you from Los Angeles. We have a wonderful program this morning that will transport you to Israel without having to leave the comfort of your home. We are very fortunate to have with us from Jerusalem, Professor Shai Arkin, the past Vice President of Research and Development, and is the Arthur Lejoie Professor of Structural Biochemistry. Shai heads a team of researchers who investigate the structural biology of membrane proteins in important human pathogens, including the flu, SARS, and COVID viruses. He's obviously an expert in the area, and we look forward to hearing his thoughts. It is also my extreme honor to introduce the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, Professor Dean Ben Yehuda. Dina is the 23rd Dean of the Hadassah Hebrew University School of Medicine and the first woman to head the medical faculty. We are so proud to have Dina joining us today. We also will have with us two exceptional graduate students, Roni Ben-Ami, MD, and Joss Moss, MD, PhD candidate. Now, it is my honor to introduce our first speaker, Asher Cohen, the 14th president of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and a close friend of the Western region. Thank you, Asher, for joining us today.
Thank you, Ellen. I'm truly honored and privileged to be the president of the Hebrew University. The Hebrew University was the very first big Zionist project in the land of Israel. When it was founded some 102 years ago, Jerusalem was largely within the old city wall, and Mount Scopus, the place of our campus, was really in the middle of nowhere. Against all the odds, the vision of the university was to be the university of the Jewish people, help in establishing a state, and become a leading university in the world. Fast forward 100 years, and looking at it from now, we clearly beat the odds. The Hebrew University educated generations upon generations of talented students. When the State of Israel was established, some 30 years after the university was established, all these students were there to make Israel the modern country that it became. If I can sum it up in one sentence, we have a tradition of excellence in both teaching and research, and in a way, we are bred to deal with crisis situations. And then came the Corona crisis. In Hebrew, there is a saying, Ein hanachtom me'id al isato, which is equivalent to one does not blow his own trumpet. I'm sure you understand that this saying does not really apply to university presidents talking about their own university. But especially now, when we did as well as we did, I have to deviate from this time-honored tradition. You will hear about all this from the remaining speakers, and you will see that in this truly terrible crisis, we rose to the challenge. We are doing groundbreaking research on the corona, and our students, in this case, our medical faculty students, showed once again how remarkable they are. As many of you know, many of these students need financial assistance to devote themselves to their study. And I hope very much that you can help. Thank you once again. I hope and believe that next time we will do it live. It sure will be a lot more fun. Thanks.
Okay, I assume from the schedule, I have the baton. So let me try to share my screen with you. Please. Okay, excellent. So thank you very much, Professor Cohen, for those inspiring words. I will continue on your lack of tradition of foregoing all humble and humility and try to tout and blow our own horn as much as we can. So perhaps the most important question that we need to ask ourselves, as Professor Cohen mentioned, this is a worldwide problem. This is a pandemic. And as you can see by these dots, there's scarcely a spot on the globe which was not hit by this disease. So clearly everyone around the world is trying to do its best or his best or their best in order to combat it. Why should you then support the Hebrew University? Why are we different? Well, let's have a look at how we, Israel, led by the Hebrew University, fared when combating this disease. So this is a relatively grim graph that shows the death per 100,000 population. And as you can see, there's a varieties of countries here. And ask yourselves, how did Israel fare in respect to other known countries? And the answer is we did remarkably well. Now, I'm not going to tell you that everything that has to do with the Hebrew University resulted in our being able to combat and to survive as well as we did, but certainly the amazing faculty at the medical school headed by Professor Ben Yehuda populate our hospitals, and the researchers being taught by the Hebrew University advise the government and all the different authorities, be it epidemiology, public health, etc. So if you simply ask yourself, why should you support the Hebrew University, Israel's leading institution? Well, the numbers speak for themselves. We have fared better than most countries around the globe. So what are we doing at the Hebrew University specifically to combat COVID-19? Well, I think an easier question to answer would be, what are we not doing? And the answer for that is very, very little. We are actually encompassing nearly every possible field, from diagnostics to genetics, trying to analyze and figure out as quickly as possible who has the disease and who is predisposed. We're trying to generate model systems, animals, in order to develop new antiviral drugs. We're trying to see how we can best help our immune system, our innate capabilities to combat this disease. We're trying to block virus infection using several different mechanisms. We're trying to look at material chemistry and try to design advanced matrices in so many different materials that will repel the virus. We're trying to identify susceptible and resistant populations to see what is the difference between them. And equally as important, our faculty of social sciences, humanities, public health, etc., are trying to combat the social and societal implications of COVID-19, something that has never been experienced by mankind. So with a very small amount of time that I had at my disposal, I decided to concentrate on only one of these circles, and that is detection. And why am I focused on the aspect of detection? Well, I don't know if you realize this, but only about 2 to 3% of the population was actually exposed by the virus. And this is a result of studies that were carried out in Israel and any other places. They simply looked for antibodies that were raised against this virus, and only 2 to 3% of the population has such antibodies, meaning that only a fraction of people were exposed to this. And why? Well, social distancing works. So if we want to contain this disease as best as we can, let's keep the infections at a minimum. And how do we do this? Well, we simply need to figure out who has the disease, who was subjected to this virus, and who does not. And that all means detection. So let me just share with you a few of the groundbreaking ideas and research that's taking place right now at the Hebrew University at the area of detection. And Professor Nir Friedman and Dr. Nomi Habib are trying to increase dramatically the volume of genetic testing using magnetic beads. And what do I mean by that? Well, both Nir Friedman and Nomi Habib are not virologists, nor are they coronavirus researchers. Nir Friedman is one of the world's experts in analyzing how our genes are utilized. Naomi Habib is a recent recruit to our Center for Brain Research, and she is an expert in resilience cognition. And yet they realize that they are very, very familiar with a way to clean the genetic information that is in the heart of this virus. And if they can clean this rapidly, utilizing genetic beads, using a sophisticated technology, they can actually sample not hundreds of new tests per researcher, but rather thousands, if not tens of thousands. And in Professor Friedman's lab right now, he actually conducts several thousands of these tests on a daily basis. So this will increase the capacity of our medical capabilities to delineate who has the disease and who does not dramatically. Professor Elon Sherman from our School of Physics has a different approach, and what he's trying to do is a point of care rapid detection utilizing fluorescence. So he, on the left, as you can see those red stars, what he's able to do using incredibly sophisticated fluorescence detection capabilities to be able to detect tiny amounts of the virus, in fact, single viruses that he deposits on a surface, and utilizing sophisticated algorithms that he's one of the world's expert, is able to, in a small contraption that you can see right in front of you, to analyze one virus, the presence of individual viruses, using a machine that can actually be held by hand or to be applied in a doctor's office or even in the entrance to a shopping mall or any other busy facility. Similarly, the head of our nano center, Uriel Levy, is trying to detect the presence of the virus using a technology that he's one of the world's experts in, and that's nanophotonics. Now, what does that mean? We're all familiar with the CPUs that run our computers. They are normally based on electronic circuits. Uriel is a world expert in photonic circuits. And what I mean by that is tiny amount of light that actually is far, far faster than our electronic current. And what he's able to do is to have a biosensor like that, that the second that a tiny amount of the genetic information of the virus adheres to that sensor, it sends out a photonic signal that immediately resonates and informs the researcher that there's a virus at hand. In fact, Uriel won a significant grant from the Israeli Innovation Authority in order to develop this technology, and prototypes are already at hand. Another incredibly exciting technology, which is really something completely different, comes from our Faculty of Agriculture. In fact, Professor Mashaniv, the Vice Dean of Research from our Faculty of Agriculture, is an expert in smell. Our olfactory system is incredibly complex. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of different receptors, each tuned to a specific odorant. Now, you would ask, what does this have to do with coronavirus research? Well, as you probably know, many people that actually contracted the disease informed that they've actually lost the sense of smell and taste. And Masha was able to lead a large consortium worldwide in Europe, in the States, etc., even in the Far East. And what they've done is they made a large panel of patients. What they did is they filled out a questionnaire, an online questionnaire, about what they could smell, what they could not smell, what they could taste, and their overall sensitivity. And the remarkable results of this sort of study was that not only have people that are enduring COVID-19 lost their sense of taste due to this dreadful virus, but they were also far less sensitive to heat and to cold. And why is this incredibly useful? Because when someone is starting to snivel and feels that he or she has a cold, if they start realizing that they've lost their sense of smell, taste, and heat sensitivity, this is a very, very good indication that they might actually have COVID-19 and they should get immediately tested, etc. So I hope I was able to convince you that we are doing fantastic work in the area of detection. And not only are we pursuing new technologies to increase the sensitivity of detection, we are also generating remarkable achievements by way of broadening the amount of and the volume of patients that we can detect. And last but perhaps not least, yours truly, I've been studying SARS coronavirus since 2003. And in 12 years that I've been ambassador of the Hebrew University, never once have I told you about what it is that I do, because up until December 2019, SARS research was not in the limelight. Well, today it is. So in a word or two, in a sentence or two, what am I doing? What I'm trying to do is to repurpose current drugs on the market to see if they are efficacious against COVID-19. And by repurposing, I mean looking at drugs that have already received FDA approval for use against other diseases and to actually check if they are potent against COVID-19. And the advantage there is the moment that the FDA has already approved the use of these drugs, it means that their toxicity has already been figured out. So the regulatory hoops that one needs to jump through are far, far simpler. So with that, I will finish. I hope that I was able to impress upon you with just this tiny, tiny tip of the iceberg, the amazing work that researchers at the Hebrew University are doing in order to combat this dreadful disease. And what I'll do is I'll go quickly backwards and leave it to my colleague, Professor Ben Yehuda, to tell you about the amazing work that is done in our Faculty of Medicine to combat COVID-19.
Would you please unshare your presentation so I can share mine?
Let me see how I can do that. How do I unshare that?
Just at the bottom of the screen there, where it says share screen, and then do unshare or stop sharing.
Actually, I'm not. Screen sharing it stopped. Excellent. Alrighty.
Good morning to you. Good night to us. As was said, I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, and I'm also the head of the Hematology Department in Hadassah. So I experienced the coronavirus from many aspects, including the Faculty of Medicine, the research and the students, and also treating my patients who are severely immune suppressed, and the coronavirus was a very dangerous disease for them. But what I will share with you now is the battle for the better diagnosis and treatment of COVID-19 at the Hebrew University Faculty of Medicine, and I'll talk from the students' role. So you know that our students are the Z generation. They were born, most of them were born after 1986. They are known to know all about technology, financial focus, no altruism. And when the corona hit, we were all surprised to see how this generation started to fight the corona together with us in an amazing and very appreciable way. Approximately 300 students have been trained to safety take COVID testing with a swab. Since the beginning of March, they are all working in close collaboration with MADA Israel, the national EMS organization. The students volunteer to take tests at home or in the Jerusalem's drive-through testing place. Students help set up and continue to operate the Corona Diagnostic Lab we established in the faculty, and we'll talk about it later again. Since the schools were closed and the elderly family members were unavailable to assist, students volunteered to serve as babysitters for medical staff so that the MDs and the nurses could continue to treat patients. We also had students that visit kidney transplanted patients at home once a week to take blood in order for them to avoid the risk of coming to the hospital. Patients who are kidney transplanted are in a very, very high risk for the coronavirus too. Students set up a drug distribution scheme and in collaboration with the community health funds, make drug deliveries to the elderly who are in quarantine. Our military truck students are recruited to the IDF, updating latest medical scientific information about COVID-19 pandemic. Computational MD students are part of the long-term planning of the IDF for the pandemic. I just want to tell you that, for example, what Shai just mentioned about the smell and the taste, the first time that the physicians in Israel were aware about it is from one of our students that informed it all over to everyone. Before it was even published, he found it as an abstract in the internet. But I think that one of the things that we are most proud about, you know, that Hadassah Hospital and the Faculty of Medicine are adjacent. Just a revolving door is separating between the hospital and the Faculty of Medicine. And we have a big laboratory, a shared laboratory, where we have a lot of equipment that is like 4 minutes walk from the actual viral laboratory of Hadassah. In no time, Professor Yuval Dor, together with Roni Ben-Ami, his MD PhD student, she will talk about it very soon, generated a laboratory that up to date performed 70,000 samples. They are able to perform more than 2,500 a day. And by that, Hadassah and the Hebrew University, the Faculty of Medicine, were the first in Israel as for doing the diagnosis of coronavirus. We used special robots, and here you see the students working with the robot and with the PCR machine. You will hear about this student here, Josh Moss, in a few minutes. They did the PCR, reaching the diagnosis of the disease. You just heard from Shai about the technique of Neil Friedman and Professor Chaviv. They did it in our faculty. And one of the nicest things that is being used now all over the world, our computational biologists, together with their students, created a pooling system where instead of checking every sample separately, they came to the right algorithm, which number is the right number to check together samples so that it won't give false positive results or false negative results. The magic number is 8, and it's being used now all over the world, including in the biggest centers, medical centers in the USA. What I will represent now are 5 subjects that are being studied in our faculty. And as you see here in Hebrew, is the name of the student that drew the picture that I'm showing you. And all the studies that I'll show you here are being done by one of our researchers together with his students. And everybody is talking about the immune system and how important it is to harness the immune system to fight COVID-19. And everybody is concentrated on antibodies against COVID-19. We know that the immune system is playing a double sword role in this disease. In one hand, we have antibodies that are fighting the disease. We know that the T cells are very important in fighting the disease, but all these immune cells are also playing a major role in the symptoms of the disease, because the inflammation that they are causing in the lungs, this is the COVID-19 disease. This is the coronavirus 2 disease, causing edema of the lung and the special lung disease that is the cause of morbidity and mortality of the patients. 3 of our PIs, together with their students, Professor Granot, who is studying neutrophils, Micha Berger, who is studying T cells, and Ofer Mandelbaum, who is studying NK cells, are now trying to see which part of the immune system is good for the patient and which part is causing the harm, and using their results will be able to aim which part of the immune system we should forcen and which part we should avoid the action, so we won't see such a bad disease. And I think that one of the most important studies that is going on in our faculty is deconstructing the coronavirus to develop antibodies for diagnosis, treatment, and vaccination of the disease. Now, you probably ask yourself, what's the big deal? Everybody is working on it. So what's unique to our group, led by Alex Rubinsky, is the fact that everybody is looking for antibodies against this protein, the S protein. But Alex is looking at the virus holistically. He looks at all the proteins that are on the virus and that are generating antibodies in the patient's body. And why does he do it? Because we learned very quickly that not all the antibodies are able to neutralize the virus. We know that some patients have high neutralizing ability antibodies, and they stop the connection between the virus and the lung cells, avoiding the disease. But on the other hand, patient might have a very high antibodies in his serum, but these antibodies are not working at all. And what Alex developed now, first of all, he can check the whole family of antibodies that are involved in this disease. And he can also, now using a special system that he developed, he can find which antibodies are good antibodies and which antibodies are bad antibodies. Now, he's helping us as physicians because we know that in the very serious patients, it's good to give plasma from convalescent patients who had the disease and they are now healthy, and they have high titer of antibodies in their blood. And we are giving the plasma, and every now and then we have a very good response, but then we have patients that don't respond at all. And we know now that when we are asking Alex afterwards, why didn't they respond? He has the explanation, and they are now developing their system to be used as a routine test. So we will be able to know ahead of time if the antibodies are good antibodies that will treat and vaccinate the patient or not. We have another group that are targeting the Achilles heel of the coronavirus. They developed here an antisense of RNA that is combining to the RNA of the virus, causing fake viruses. And these viruses, when they put it into nanoparticles, they attach to the lung cells, and then you don't have a place for the real viruses to come in. And another thing that we are working on is creating a mouse model with this animal model, we'll be able to check new drugs, we'll be able to improve the diagnosis, and hopefully we'll use these animal models to develop the vaccination that we are all looking for. And it's a good time to say thank you to the Schwartz family, who have already donated a very generous donation for this facility that we are building in our faculty, and will be a national center for this research. And last but not least, one of the questions that everybody is very interested in is why, for example, men are more susceptible to the virus and have worse disease than women. Why some 90 and above years old patients are surviving the disease and are going home, and very young patients are not surviving the disease. What's the genetic, not of the virus, what the genetic of the sick people, of the patients, what difference in the genetic causes this different way of susceptibility to the infection. And we have a group of multidisciplinary researchers and also our very, very talented students that are in the program of computational medicine program, students that are studying together medicine and computational science, and together they are like, they did a think tank where they are looking at epidemiological changes as well as genetic changes, trying to differentiate between patients. And one of our strengths is the connection with the hospital, because the day the pandemic started, we started to build a biobank where we have a lot of samples from patients. We know the history of each and every patient, and a lot of samples of healthy people that were exposed to the virus. We have families where, you know, in the very Orthodoxic Jews, there are families of 13 and more people living in the same house, very crowded home, and some of them were very sick, some of them were infected but asymptomatic, and some of them didn't get infected at all. So these are questions that this group will answer with their research. And now it's my really great privilege, because this is the theme of this evening, to introduce to you two of our students. And these are really very, very talented and very unique students, but I want to tell you, we have many of them. We will concentrate on these two because I think that they represent the group of students that we would like you to know, because what the common between them is the fact that they are not only medical students, they are doing other very, very important things. And I would like to give you a short introduction, and then I want them to talk about themselves and their work. But the first one is Roni Ben-Ami. Roni is a medical student who is now starting her PhD, and not only an excellent medical student and very talented PhD student, she is the founder and director of the Asylum Seekers Clinic in Jerusalem, and she will talk about it later. She is also, together with Yuval Dor, her mentor and the PI, they built the a coronavirus routine laboratory, and she's running the laboratory actually during all these months. And the second student, Josh Moss, there are a lot of Jewish mothers in the audience, so I think he's the dream of every Jewish mother. He is a medical student, just completed his studies, but he's also a very talented biologist and computational scientist. So you have three offers in one. And I think that one of the things that for me as a dean, Josh represent is the future physician. A very good physician who understands deeply biology and not afraid from computational digital medicine that is going to take place in the future. And now I would like to stop here and to let Ronnie talk. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Professor Dina. Shalom, good morning. Israeli hospitals offer a unique social experience. Since they are public, you get to meet all parts of the country's complex and diverse society. Arabs, ultra-Orthodox, rich, poor, young, old, and everyone in between. So at the beginning of my rounds phase of medical school in 4th year, refugee issues filled the newspaper every day. But I realized that refugees themselves were noticeably missing at the hospital. Where were they? Surely this population has serious medical needs. I decided to take things into my own hands. I established a free clinic for the thousands of refugees in Jerusalem who lack access to healthcare. I approached my professors at the Hebrew University Faculty of Medicine to volunteer there. And I was thrilled that they listened to an unprecedented idea from 4th year student and agreed to act for the right to health of refugees. We all understood that no matter what our political views might be, we're doctors. When we see someone sick, we must try to heal. 3 years later, the clinic is thriving, thanks to the student and professors at the Hebrew U Faculty of Medicine. We have changed and saved lives. One story I cannot forget involves a young Eritrean woman who suffered from chronic stomach aches. When she came to the clinic, our doctor noticed a bulge, and we immediately started the process of diagnosing what turned out to be ovarian cancer. We were able to find a hospital to perform the surgery, which we hope will save her life. My name is Ronnie. I'm an MD graduate and a PhD student. I grew up in Ra'anana, and now I live in Har Adar, which is a small town near Jerusalem. I served as an officer in the intelligence corps of the IDF and worked with local schools as a hiking instructor. I chose medicine because I believe a physician plays an enormous role, which is both a duty and a privilege to see the patient, to find the source of pain and distress and provide aid. I chose the Hebrew University as my educational home simply because it is known to be the best. Nowadays, I am the head of the Corona testing lab we established here at the faculty together with Hadassah's virology unit. We started from scratch and trained our highly skilled PhD students and postdocs to do the testing, contributing manpower and our advanced equipment to Israel's fight against the virus. We also had the innovative spirit of Hebrew U on our side. We knew that testing reagents are in short supply all over the world. So we developed a group testing method that saves 7 times the reagents needed for testing. This method made us the leading testing lab in Israel, enabling us to expand testing to dozens of nursing homes, essential industries as part of Israel's exit strategy in the effort to bring back the economy after this crisis. It feels so good to know that we have a role in this, that we can help and really make a large impact on how Israel will look during and after this pandemic. I received an award from the Dean of Students for my social activity, which together with other scholarships I received, allows me to thrive and grow within the fertile walls of the Hebrew U. For that, I would like to thank you all as my partners, our partners in everything we achieve here at the Hebrew U. Thank you.
So I guess it's my turn. Thank you for the introduction, Professor Ben-Yehuda. So hi everyone, as was mentioned, my name is Josh. I'm an MD PhD student here at the university. And I'd like to tell you a bit about my journey here at the university over the past close to a decade already. I actually came to Israel on my own from Montreal, Canada about 13 years ago after finishing high school, and ultimately decided to make it my home. And after a few years in the country, part of it, which I actually spent volunteering at the Hadassah Medical Center not far from here, I decided I wanted to study medicine. And really what I was interested in was combining medicine with medical research, with the idea, as Professor Ben-Yehuda mentioned, that by doing so, you can have an effect not only on the patients that you see in your clinic as a doctor, but really on the future of medicine as a whole. So when I looked around for medical schools to apply to, Hebrew University was really the clear choice because it stood out as the leader of medical research in the country. During my first few years here at the medical school, I worked in the lab of Professor Chaim Cedar, where we studied how DNA forms the fundamental programs that make the cells in our body work. Later on, I joined Professor Yuval Dor's lab, where we had an idea to use those DNA molecules that it turns out are released from dying cells into the blood and use them as a basis for a new kind of blood test to detect the damage to cells that happens in disease. And I ended up making this blood test the focus of my PhD research. So we like to think of this blood test kind of like a liquid biopsy, because it gives us information about organs that are inside our body without having to use invasive procedures. And I actually presented my work on this blood test at a major international conference about 2 years ago, where it was picked up by a large diagnostic company in the US who we're now working with to make it part of a new blood test for the early detection of cancer. Fast forwarding a bit to a few months ago, when the coronavirus pandemic hit, we really felt that we had a responsibility to shift the focus of some of our work to help the fight against coronavirus. So in addition to contributing expertise and resources to the testing center, such as the robot behind me, for example, now in work that I'm involved with actually together with Roni, we're using the blood test that I developed during my PhD to gain a better understanding of the disease and ultimately to improve treatment. So the way this works is that by looking at how much the lung or really any other organ in the body is suffering and releasing its DNA into the blood, we can track how patients are doing in different situations. And this will ultimately help us figure out how to best treat them. On a personal note, throughout my time here at the university, I've really had the honor to receive scholarships, including the Bialer Scholarship from the American Friends of Hebrew University. And as a father of 2 kids who I share with my wife, Gal, who I actually met at the university, these scholarships have really been the key to being able to focus on research, all while supporting a growing family. So I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to our friends in America for making it possible for us to study and fight diseases like COVID-19.
Thank you very much. So I think that now it's the time that I should address a question to our brightest students. And I would like to to show you what I think that need to be solved. What's the problem that I foresee in the next few months or years? You know that in 2002, we had the SARS, and the SARS that we had at that time and the SARS that we are facing now is absolutely the same disease. You can't differentiate. In 2004, the SARS-CoV-1 subsided, and everybody stopped researching this virus. And now we have SARS-CoV-2, which is the same disease, another virus. And my concern is that once this disease will subside, and I hope it will subside soon, everybody will forget about it. And when coronavirus 3 or other virus will attack us in this time or another, we won't be prepared again. So as young, bright minds, I would like you to give us suggestions how we should avoid this catastrophe again.
I think you raised a really important concern, and I think that probably education is the key maybe solution for this problem, because I in this fight against SARS-CoV-2, I think I thought all this time that we need to be more interdisciplinary. The public discourse in Israel and probably in many other places, US included, is too bipolar. There's the economy side that is sure that they know the truth, and the other side are the doctors or experts in public health, which are certain that everything needs to be done in order to stop the spread, no matter the cost. And actually, I think there's no two sides. Health and economy are two variables in the equation of quality of life. So I believe there needs to be more people that will know how to integrate these fields and can make right evidence-based recommendation for the country's political leaders.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Ronnie said, and I'd like to add to it a bit on the note of interdisciplinary work. So personally, I've had experience, as you mentioned, Professor Benuda, with computer science as well as medicine, and I tried to integrate them both into my work. And what it's really taught me, the combination, more than the expertise that I've gained in computer sciences and medicine separately, is to be able to communicate at a high level with computer scientists and with doctors or researchers. And when you could communicate with people, then all of a sudden, I think the advances get to be much more impressive. And so what we've seen with this pandemic is really impressive work coming from different disciplines, even in science. For example, in computer sciences, we've seen all sorts of amazing analyses, and then we've seen different things from physicians and researchers. But what I think will bring it to the next step is, the combination is people who are trained and able to bring different fields together. And that's true for computational sciences and medicine. That's true, as Roni mentioned, for finance and economics together with public health. And that's true for virology, the study of the virus, basic biology, and physicians. And another thing is really, there needs to obviously be a multi-level approach. We need people who are devoted to prevention in several different levels of society, including, policymakers, scientists who are focusing on viruses, who right now we really don't have enough. As Shai mentioned previously, it wasn't a very popular field until a few months ago. And also doctors who are really experts in viruses so that we can tackle something similar if it ever arises.
Okay, thank you very much. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for your major support in our students. Our students are not only the future, which is of course very important, but our students are the present, because without them, there is no research in the faculty. And I think that it's true for all the university. They're the engine, and they're the people that are working in the laboratories. And as a dean, I'm very proud of them. And I would like to thank you very much for supporting them for all the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ronnie, Josh, and of course, Professor Ben Yehuda, for sharing this presentation with us and your personal experiences. I also want to thank Professor Shai Arkin, and Professor Cohen for being with us this evening. This is truly enlightening. I'm Mark Genender. I'm the president of the Western region. I think I can speak for everyone in just saying thank you and how much we appreciate all the hard work that you're doing to help the fight against COVID-19. We had a couple of other presentations, and I think the uniqueness of the way research is done at Hebrew University is incredibly impressive, and something we all can be very proud of. On a previous meeting, I asked Professor Ben Yehuda what's different, and she answered it by saying, we are better together. And that explains the interdisciplinary approach, but I think it has a lot of meaning for a lot of solutions to this problem that we're dealing with right now, not just in the research, but key words, we are better together, which I think explains how Hebrew University works with all the different departments and the schools, but also how people work together. I'd now like to open the floor. We have time for just a couple or three questions. I see there's one question already in the Q&A tab here. So if you have a question, you either raise your hand or type it into the Q&A box, and we'll ask the group. The first question is from Linda Smith. Is Hebrew University making its discoveries known to the rest of the world, both to assist in healing and to show we are making a significant contribution?
Shai, you want to answer?
Certainly, the answer is a resounding yes. Scientists want to impact as many people as possible, and the way to do that is to publish your results in any possible venue. If it's journal publications, meeting, etc. Today, there's even an archive that one sends their publications prior to acceptance by a journal. So as I said, despite the fact that we might be geographically located far away from other centers, our results are emanated to the world sphere within a second of their culmination.
I can maybe try and ask about, try to answer this also, about addressing the polling strategy that I've talked about that we developed. First thing, we knew that there's a lot of interest in this all over the world, so we put it in the archive that Professor Shai was talking about, and it's before even peer review. It's very premature in science terms, but we've put it there because we know it's important for the world. And indeed, we got me for the first time in my life. My email was full with calls from letters all over the world that were trying to realize how to do this, how to implement this in their own labs, in their own area of field, that because they wanted everyone in their area to be tested, and that's a great way to do that. And that's one example of how we approach and try to publish our scientific achievements.
Thank you. I see that Helen Jacobs-Lepore has a question. Do you want to open her mic so she can ask it, or type it in? I can't see the question, unfortunately.
Okay. Hi. This is Helen. Hold on. Hi, this is Helen. Just walking back. Are there any vaccines or treatments that Hebrew University is currently applying for FDA approval? And also on another question, I've been reading on social media questioning whether COVID is really a virus or is it really a bacteria attacking the vascular clotting system. I don't know if there's any validity to the latter. I tend to doubt it, but you know, social media likes to have these conspiracies. So I'm just wondering whether there's any validity to the latter.
It's a virus, and the way that the thrombosis occurs is because of the inflammation and because of a lot of tissue that is coming out of the lungs to the blood from the inflamed area, causing activation of the clotting mechanism. So it's a virus. There is no doubt about it.
Thank you. That's what I thought. But you know, these little conspiracy theories that want to permeate the social media. What about, is there anything that Israel or Hebrew is about to submit perhaps for FDA approval for vaccines or treatments or anything?
I think that it's too early. I think that we have now a few studies that we started. We have the Helsinki approval for it, but it's too early. It's just clinical trials that are running now in the university and the hospitals affiliated to the university. But it's too early to approach the FDA.
I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you again. If anyone has follow-up questions, we can always get back in touch with our speakers and get more, either schedule another time, but clearly get questions answered. I'm going to ask that we try and get the copies of the slides so we can circulate them for people to review. But I just want to thank you again. It's now my honor to introduce the Vice Chairman of the Western Region Board and a member of the National Board, Patty Glazer. Patty, you need to put your video on, unmute.
Hi, everybody. Back in 1925, when the university opened, Dr. Fonts, who was then the president of Brown University, wrote, among other things, the establishment of the new university in Jerusalem is of profound significance, not only to Palestine, but to the civilized world. Distinguished scholars from every part of the world will cooperate in establishing the highest standards. No man or woman who knows anything of history can survey the present plans without a thrill of expectation and a prayer that all of which we now dream may be fully realized in the city of David. Ladies and gentlemen, I can say to you without any hesitation, these incredible students, Ani and Josh, are part of that dream fulfilled. They represent hundreds of graduate students at Hebrew University working on COVID-19 research. They have chosen to dedicate their lives to others, to helping patients have better health outcomes, to research, to understand and to cure disease, and to finding urgent answers for some of the greatest health challenges of our time. This year, our fundraising, our focus is on scholarships for students studying for their MD, PhD, MD/PhD, and Master's in Science. After hearing and meeting these inspiring students, my pride for Hebrew University has reached a higher level, frankly, higher than I thought possible. We need to take action to ensure all of these graduate students working on COVID-19 research can continue their studies this fall. I ask you to join me in making a meaningful gift. Shortly, you're going to be receiving a letter in the mail asking for your support for these scholarships. I urge you, like me, to please respond with a generous heart, and your gift will ensure that the answers we need will be found in science, not in hyperbole and not in political expediency. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you all for joining us.